Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
All right,
Ready to
today,
learn
Happy hot day.
happy hot weekend. It's going to be just gross.
for the next like 9 days.
Oh,
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty hot.
yep.
I
All
like
right.
hot,
Well, sell our
but I have a
net sheet
pool.
today.
It's
How much
different.
are you going to make? How much money are you going to
Yeah,
make,
so
right?
what does that all mean as far as if I sell? So not all agents do a net sheet, which is crazy. Because I've gone on appointments where I've gone with other listing agents
Hmm.
or against other listing agents, and
They
the
don't bring
seller's like,
sheet.
oh no, I didn't see a sheet. Sorry, I have to turn the fan on in here. It's so
Wow. So that's
um
interesting.
well, and you can't bring it with because you don't know their, payoff. So I always send a net sheet. I do your market analysis and that's going to come. And then I give you my pricing opinion and then net sheet's going to come with that. So I always ask on the appointments, what your payoff is. And that's why we want to know what your payoff is. It's not that we're nosy. It's rare that sellers don't want to tell you, but so we're going to take your payoff and it's going to calculate then all the closing cost for that based on a random closing date that we put in. So usually it'll do, 30 days. So,
Yeah.
and it'll give you like all the different prorations. So, and again, these are always estimated. So just like when Laura does an estimated closing cost, these are like estimated. So it's, and it's an average of what insurance looks like and things like that.
Yeah.
So a few things just that you're going to be paying. You have title fees. I will say Illinois is probably double than Wisconsin. So you need a title policy, and people will be like, oh, why do I need that? Doesn't the buyer pay for that? The buyer also is doing a title policy as well. They're doing it for their lender. So that's in their closing costs. So you need a title policy. Basically, you have to be able to show the lender and the buyer that I own this, have the right to own this property and pass it on to you. And there's no liens or encumbrances on it.
Yep.
And it's all squeaky clean. So that's going to be charged by the title company. Most of those are pretty standard. It's kind of across the board, and that fluctuates based on the amount of money you're selling your house for, which I don't know why that is, because to me, it's the same amount of work
Yeah.
for
That
the
is
title
interesting.
company. So why is the policy on a $500,000 house so much more expensive than a $200,000 house?
Right.
But whatever, that's just how it is. I don't know.
Transfer taxes. So depending on the county that you live in.
Yeah. So you're going to have
Mhm.
that title policy, and then you're going to have a closing fee that the title company is charging you to close the deal. Any special assessment letters. So this is basically the title company is going to reach out to the municipality and make sure that there's no special assessments. Sewer's not coming, water's not coming, where your taxes are going to balloon or you're going to owe this side money. So so you pay for that. And a lot of municipalities, it can be $50 to $100, just that line item alone. Then you're going to buy gap coverage for the buyer. And what that gap coverage covers is from the time, like I send my file to the title company to pull title for my closing to the time we actually close, could be 30, 40, 50 days. And it covers that gap. So did somebody throw a lien on there at the last minute and the title company doesn't catch it? So it's basically kind of like insurance kind of covering that gap. So that's $150. And those two things usually don't fluctuate based on price. Then you're going to have your state transfer tax. So that's based on a certain, and each state's different. So it's a dollar value it's dollar to dollar. So it could be, I don't know, what is Illinois? I don't even know what the transfer tax is.
I always run an automated title calculator and I look at it there. So I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. So it's usually like, $3 per every $10,000 or X amount per every $100,000. So you're not paying $1, but it's money calculated back and forth. And then you're going to pay a recording fee. So the title company is going to record the title and the deed and everything with the register of deeds for where you're purchasing the house or selling your house rather. So you're going to pay that recording fee too. If you're getting getting the money wired to you, there's going to be another little fee for that. And these some are recording and wire fees are, $25, $30, but it does all add up. If you're on well and septic and you had to provide your buyer with those tests, these are closing costs. So that $250, $275 septic inspection and the $350 well inspection, that's going to show up on your closing statement. You can pay it outside of closing. Most sellers, we just send the invoice to title and they put it on there, comes out of your proceeds. If you're buying a home warranty, anything like that, that also is now a closing cost. If you're giving any credits, that becomes a closing cost. If you have an attorney you hired, that typically is a closing cost and it's going to be on there. So those are things, if I know your house is on well and septic, I'm going to put my estimate in there for that. So I can add those things. If I know you're using an attorney, I'll estimate that just to try to get your numbers closer. But I think it's really important because they just had a seller be like, why is this number different? I was like, it's because it's an estimate, right? And I would look closely because a lot of the one I use is from Chicago Title. So it does do a tax proration on there. But taxes are not a closing cost. And I say that because you have to pay your taxes no matter what. And none of this other stuff do you have to pay no matter what. So the taxes really aren't a closing expense, but they're going to be on your closing statement. So the system I use does put those on there, but it will only do the current year. So what that means is it's only going to do, right now we're in June of 25. So it's going to do January 1 through, June, whatever today is, 25. And it's going to prorate the per day tax amount and then what you owe the buyer as a credit, because then they're going to pay the full tax bill when it comes out at the end of the year. But it doesn't do the year prior. So in Illinois, we're in the rears. So it would do 25s, but remember 24s aren't all paid yet for some people. So those wouldn't be on there. Another thing when you're looking at the number on there is to also take into account, you could possibly be getting some credits from the buyer. So let's say you paid your HOA dues for the entire year. They're going to average that number out, divide by 365, get a per day rate, and then you're going to get a credit for the part of year you didn't live there. Yeah. If you've paid your taxes already or water, sewer bills, those could all be credits back to you. So that is part of the title company's job to verify what's been paid by you or what's going to be owed for the time you've used the house. And then, work out those prorations. So you're going to see those on there. And then escrow, if you have an escrow account, when you're a seller, sometimes that number looks smaller than what you were hoping for and the biggest thing on there is the tax proration. So especially depending on if you're in Illinois in certain times of the year, it's a big number. And you have to remember that you have that money in an account somewhere else that you've already been putting away every month for your taxes. So once that mortgage is paid off, then the escrow account will be closed and they will cut you a check for what is sitting in there. So most of that credit you're giving, because we always estimate high, but most of that credit you're getting is coming back to you because you've already been putting it aside. Same with your homeowner's insurance. So if you just paid June 1st, let's say was your date, and you closed June 30th, you paid the whole year, but only used 30 days. So you will get money directly from your insurance company. That policy will close out. And these aren't things, these are usually automated things that you don't need to watch for or do on your own. But know that the money will be coming back. And I always tell sellers, it's usually right around the time you forget about it. So maybe 10 days or so. And then you're like, what? Because I remember I was like, oh my God, did my insurance cancel me? Why are they giving me my money back? Because I still used them for my new house. but I forgot I had already paid them for the old house or had money put aside for the old house. So that's all going to come back to you after closing. So don't panic, too much. And then obviously the last closing cost is the commission. So that will be on there too. And that is a closing cost for a seller. And, commissions are all negotiable. So whatever you've negotiated with your agent, and then you might have negotiated to pay also the buyer's agent, you're going to see that line item broken down. So you're going to see exactly what check is going to your agent and exactly what check is going to the brokerage for the buyer. So it's all broken down in nice, clean line items. And then, the buyer's going to have all of their stuff too. So it does look kind of messy when you put them two together. And that's why I like to give the net sheet. And the title company will do a separate one for the seller, so it looks cleaner, and that will look more organized like a net sheet would. But if you're thinking of selling, and this is something, it doesn't take much to do. Obviously, I need to know what your house is going to sell for. So ideally, I'd like to do a market analysis and be in the home and tell you what I think it's worth. And then I put that estimated sales price on there. But I mean, it's something, if you are even curious, it takes me 2 seconds. You could reach out to an agent and say, hey, what if I sold my house? I owe 100. What if I sold my house for 250? Because I saw the neighbors down the street sold for 250. I'm just curious, if I sold for 250 today, what would I walk away with? And this is what I owe. So really, we need a sales price, and we're going to need to know, what you're thinking of selling for. And we can slap this together for you too. And we can look up the taxes and we plug that all in. So it's definitely, I think, something a lot of agents skip over during the listing presentation or the follow-up email or presentation, the 2-step. And I think it's a shame, because then some sellers don't understand things. And especially with all the commission stuff happening and the way it's gotten more confusing, I think. So it's just another opportunity to have that conversation with the seller to make sure they're really understanding like where this money is going.
Yeah.
Well, it's such a huge added benefit that both you and Lindsay do that for your clients, because as a seller, I couldn't even imagine not knowing how much I was going to get back.
Right. Or having an idea. Even
right.
And some people might not get anything back depending on how long ago that they purchased their home, or
correct.
You don't know if they did like a modification on their mortgage where things were added on to the back end. So it's a huge benefit for you just to get the sheet from the agent. And really be able to plan forward. And
that's why, to be honest with, because I mean, and some people, it's not so much dishonesty as it is just forgetfulness. If you have a home equity line of credit, that is against your house. So that you have to tell the agent about, because that affects your numbers. That has to get paid off when you sell that house. If you took out a second mortgage, anything like that, we need to know all this stuff. Are you behind? If you're behind, I'm going to raise your payoff. You tell me you owe 150. I'm going to be like, let's just say you owe 160, because you'll be surprised how fast that goes up when you're not paying with all the fees and things like that. So the more honest you can be with things like that, or if some people know, hey, I have a judgment or I have a lien that's going to show up. I don't know exactly what it is. It's probably around this. And then I can throw it on there. And then you're just more prepared. It's about being prepared. And even if
your purchase.
If your purchase, that was like my next point, is that I do some for sellers that are thinking about selling and their lender wants to see, the lender's asking for, sometimes they'll ask us for a closing statement. And I'm like, well, that's way down the road. I'm not going to get that, or bug the title company, but they want to see what I'm thinking. And usually I would say my numbers are within like 1,000, provided there's nothing. So it's usually pretty close. So I've had clients that, their lender wants to see that, because then they're going to throw that in their file to say, okay, let's say you walk with this that the agent's telling you working with. Now you can afford X when you go to buy something else. So it helps you kind of prepare. So it's definitely something you should be getting if you're thinking of selling your house. It's something you should have seen I mean, unless you don't want to, I'm taking a listing tomorrow, and he asked me why I needed his payoff. And I was like, well, I want to do a net sheet for you. And he's like, oh no, I know everything. I know all the numbers. I'm like a calculator. If the commission's 5%, that's all I need to know to throw it in.
That's nice.
And I know. And I was like, okay. I mean, as long as you're sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and for anybody out there that is even possibly thinking about preparing to sell your house, this is a great way to reach out to Danielle or Lindsay, and they can sit down with
have
you
an
and
idea.
give you your roadmap to selling.
Yeah.
So you're fully prepared and plan that way.
Yeah. And the market shifts, right? It has it ebbs and flows. And so it's not going to stay stagnant, that number, but at least we have like a baseline. So just like a buyer would sit with a lender to start their roadmap, a seller can just sit. We don't have to come into your house if you don't want. You can pop into the office and just, we can look on the computer and see what's happening in your neighborhood, and okay, roughly just based on what your neighborhood's doing, here's just a rough number. So you can just kind of see it. I mean, it doesn't cost you anything. You're not signing a listing agreement. So we're always here to help. So if you're thinking of selling, this is a good video for you.
Divorce situations where they really want to see this, even for people that are in the middle of a divorce, or now it's starting to get a little serious where they need these numbers. So,
share our video,
share, reach
subscribe.
out if you have questions, and
feel free to ask questions for sure. Pass this along to anybody you think it might be helpful for. And that's all. We're almost at the end of the month already.
I
know.
Then it's recap.
Crazy.
Next week is recap.
Yes, it is.
All right. That's crazy. Okay.
Have
Bye,
a nice hot
ladies.
weekend.
Have a good
one. Bye.
Bye.